guys, I'm Neil Cowlan and I'm a session guitarist from the UK. I'm here with this absolutely beautiful Paul Reed Smith Hollow Body 2 and just playing for a little Marshall Class 5, great little combo. So I'm a remote session specialist, so I have tracks sent to me and then I record all my guitar parts on it instead of me coming out to a studio and then bringing whatever I think I need. It's much better for me here because I have all my amplifiers here, or most of my amplifiers here, most of my guitars and pedals and effects and all the other gear that I use. So it means that you can get really, really amazing results for surprisingly little money. So I get asked a lot of questions about what my studio is like, what equipment I use and everything. So I thought I'd do a little tour, show you around, just some of the stuff I use, because it's not always here, it's sometimes at other studios and things. There's a subscribe link at the bottom of the video, so hit that and you can grab all the videos that I'm going to be making. I'm going to be doing lots of lessons, tips and tricks, recording session videos showing you how to record things, how to get the sounds. And if you're interested in any sessions, you can email me at info@neilcowlan.com. The email is at the bottom of the video again. You can ask me any questions, and I hope you enjoy. Okay. Okay, hi everyone, so welcome to the studio. This studio is just outside Cambridge and it was built by audio legends Neve. So you can imagine the live room is really, really wonderful, sounds absolutely incredible. The benefit for me of having a recording studio, a purpose-built recording studio at that, is that I can have my cabinets mic'd up in a nice big live room that's designed to record sound in and capture the cabinets really well. There's a lot of people that have guitar cabinets in a little kind of, they call them like a dead box, I think, or an ISO box. There's a little box and that works really well. It stops the sound and keeps the neighbours happy and things like that. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't let the cabinets breathe, doesn't allow the sound to spread and breathe, and that's what we hear. So one of the things I'm able to do, as I'll show you in a minute, is to have my cabinets mic'd up in a great sounding live room, and you can really hear the difference. It makes a massive, massive difference. So we're in the control room right now. I'll just give you a little tour around. Behind me you can see some of my favourite amplifiers that I use. I'll give you a detailed tour in a minute, but there's the Hampstead Artist here. This one is the absolute core of my sound these days. It's an incredibly beautifully built boutique amp made in England by some really, really amazing people, really lovely people. These amps are just incredible. It's got amazing reverb on it. Don't often record the reverb. A lot of engineers and producers like it to be completely dry, but sometimes I'll print some reverb if I think it's worth it. This has got amazing reverb in it. It's also got an incredible tremolo channel, which actually can come in quite handy sometimes. Then above that is a Paul's amp from Paul Reed Smith. Very lucky to have this amp, very grateful for this amp. It's quite rare, very expensive. Again, it's got no reverb on it and it's very, very quiet, no hiss and buzz, which is great for recording. I'll show you a bit around that later, but it does an amazing kind of just clean, dirty sound, which is how I like my amps to sound. I like the clean to just kind of be dirty, but it still sounds clean. And then here we have got Two Rock Studio Pro. This is just a really, really great boutique kind of Dumbley Fender clean that does just very sweet overdrive. And then a Bad Cat. This is a Club 30. It's a very kind of AC30 sound, very kind of gutsy, quite raw sound. Really cool. Works really well to cut through a mix, that kind of thing. I have an old Marshall Plexi down here that I use, and I have one of my favourite recording amps is actually an orange Tiny Terror head that I have down here. It's really great for getting crunchy kind of rock rhythm tones. So that's the amplifiers that I tend to use the most. Obviously they're all here, so what's really great for me here is they're all here. I can switch between them on the fly and they all go through to this live room, to the cabinets. It just makes life really much, much easier. So let me show you the cabinets in the live room. As you can see, I've got quite a lot of cabinets and things around that I can use, but these two are the two that I tend to use the absolute most. They're both 2x12. One has got creamback Celestians in it, which is the Hampstead cabinet. This cabinet is really one of the very best I've ever heard. It really is incredible. And then this is a Matt Amp built cabinet, another boutique cabinet that has 212s in it. Again, it looks quite a lot bigger. This one's got vintage 30s in it, which I really like, although I'm starting to use the creambacks a lot more. So both of these are in here. if I take a little step back, you can see there's a lot of air behind them, and there's an awful lot of air in front of them. Some of my stands there. What that does is it means that I've got these mics here close mics, but then I can have other mics further back, which I'll often do. If I just look at the mics now, you'll notice I've got Shure SM57 on both mic cabinets, and then this one I've actually got an an AKG 414 set on this one, which I'm just trying out some different kind of microphone combinations. It's actually sounding really good. This one here, this stand here, would normally have on it a Royer 121. It's just somewhere else at the minute, but that's normally on there. And of course they're set so they're in phase. If you look at this one here, the actual capsule on this 57 is a bit further back. If you take the head off, it's a bit further back than you think. So it's roughly at the minute in line with the centre of this, which is where the capsule is on this one. But it's not quite actually right, but it's easy to get right. I like them so that they're just off the centre of the cone. So back here, they're actually, because I've just been moving about, they're not connected at the minute, but you'll notice that both of them are ported at the back. I find you get too much bass oomping out the front if they're not ported. So both of these are ported at the back. This one actually you can put the baffle back in this one, but I prefer it out. And this Hampstead cab is just absolutely sublime, wonderful thing to record with. So these things go out and then into my wall box here. You can see it's just 4 channels plugged in at the minute. You can see I like to keep everything nice and neat and tidy. So that's the cabinets that I'm currently using. I also have a couple of 112s, a couple of 210s and some 412s that I use. But these two are the ones that really seem to work. Okay, so let's go back to the live room and we'll look at the heads a bit more. Okay, so we're back in the live room. I've turned the lights on so you can see it a little bit better. So let's have a look at some of the amplifiers I use. Down here on the floor is this beautiful old Plexi. Starting to be a little bit worse to wear, the cover's on it, but it sounds amazing. So heavy, these amplifiers, so it's a blessing that I don't have to take it around too much. And then this little orange Tiny Terror. They're both on the floor because they're normally on a cabinet actually that I stand there that I've lent to somebody at the minute, so that's why they're down there. All of these heads that I have in here, which you can see quite a few of them, they're connected via speaker leads into a patch bay that is made for me, and it means I can just plug into the amp head I want, and then I can just select on the dial which head is going to the cabinet, and that means it's really quick to switch them. So let's have a look around then. First of all, we'll start with this Hampstead. It's just absolutely beautiful, built just amazing build quality. Obviously you've got high and low input on it like a lot of amplifiers. You've got the gain, and then you've got a really simple EQ section on this one. It's really cool. Reverb and a tremolo, and then a master volume. It's a great master volume on this amp. So this is the amp that I do pretty much everything clean with. That kind of clipping sound that you just get on a clean, that comes from this as well. It's really good. Again, I don't use the reverb on it a lot because we don't tend to print that much reverb, especially if I'm like on a mono track and it's really the engine is like a stereo kind of reverb, so it's good not to. But this is a really amazing amp, and it's the first one I go to really. So then here we have the PRS Pools amp sitting on top. It sits on top handily because the dials are on top. This one you can see is again a very simple amp. There's not much to it. Volume, presence, treble, middle, bass, master. It has this little kind of switch here which changes, it's not a channel, it changes some components inside, and it basically makes it go from kind of a really kind of sort of slightly thicker Fender clean to a Marshally type sort of grind, which is really cool, really useful. Again, beautifully built amplifier. So I use this an awful lot. It's 50 watts. So it's not incredibly loud, but it's quite a quiet 50 watts. The Artist 20 down there, the Hampstead, this is 20, I think 22 watts, and it's incredibly loud. It's just absolutely brilliant. Then we've got the 2-Rock. So this is a Studio Pro. It's kind of I think a scaled down custom reverb. This is just a wonderful clean, slightly different, slightly throatier kind of clean than the Hampstead one. Very different. Again, it just comes in handy to have. And then we've got the Bad Cat. So like I say, it's a kind of AC30 type of idea. Very good amplifier, really cool, cuts through very well. The reverb on this is slightly different. It seems to kind of be put in a different place to the Hampstead reverb, and it really makes a difference. I don't actually a huge fan of the reverb on it, so I don't ever record with this reverb. But again, it's a great amp to have, and it's just really good to have in the kind of the rig. Okay, so there's the 4 main amps that I use. Okay, so let's now just have a quick look at the signal chain that I use to record with mainly. So we're going to look at the preamps that I use, how my guitar's connected in, because slightly complicated system, I suppose. It's really simple in some ways, but kind of more complicated than just plugging in at a live gig. And then yeah, we'll look at the converters that I use and into Logic or Pro Tools. Okay, so the cables are connected to the microphones in the live room. Then they go into the wall box, and that wall box is connected then directly into these interfaces here. These are Prism Sound interfaces, just the most transparent, just perfect interfaces, converters, whatever you want to call them, you can get. I have quite a large set of them, so I have 16 channels of input, and that's because I do a lot of tracking and mixing for other people as well. So as well as doing session work, I do a lot of track mixing, again online, so people send me the tracks. But I also do a lot of tracking because we've got such a wonderful live room. I do a lot of drum recording here, really amazing for drums. It sounds incredible for most things really, but so that's why I have these. Obviously, when I've only got 4 mics, there's only 4 channels used. So what happens is they go into these converters, and then these are plugged into the Mac over here. And there's actually 2 Macs. You'll see I have 1 Mac on the floor, which is onto these monitors. That's actually not switched on. That's actually a backup. And then I'm recording into this Mac most of the time these days. This is currently with Logic. I use Pro Tools and Cubase as well, mainly Logic and Pro Tools. So that goes into there. But before we get into there though, obviously we put our guitar somewhere. So what I do is I have this Korg rack tuner right here. So that's where my guitar goes into. Now I know I'm always playing in tune basically, and it's really quick for me to tune up. The signal then comes out of there, and it would tend to come into my pedal board down here. I use very few pedals. I have a huge collection of pedals and a rack out in the live room that I have loads more pedals in as well. This is just set up for something I'm doing at the moment. This actually has another tuner on it just because I use it live as well, but that would obviously be bypassed. So it comes into here, and then I have the volume pedal. The volume pedal is probably one of the most important parts in the chain actually, because what it does is it means that I can come essentially off the volume between playing, so I don't get any hiss, anything like that, any buzz that I might be getting. It just makes a really nice signal, and it means I can obviously do things like swelling in really clean, saves my volume pots on my guitars and doing things like that. So that's a really useful thing. Down here we've got a very simple setup. Again, this is a board I'm using for live stuff, but we've got a really nice overdrive pedal here. The Leslie U from Love Pedal is just really cool pedal. Great standard TS9. This is a Distortion Pro from Full Turn. Great kind of crunchy distortion. And then we've got a Jetta Univibe pedal, really incredible. This Pog gives me some kind of octave play stuff, and then a delay pedal. Again, I wouldn't ever really print delay. I like to have a tiny bit so it's floating, but I wouldn't ever print it normally. So it would then come out of the volume pedal and would go into one of the amplifiers, depending on which one I'm using. I tend not to have a compressor on. There's a compressor sitting there actually, and a couple of other ones above there. None of those are actually plugged in, they're just sitting there. So I tend to try not to have a compressor pedal. Occasionally I'll have one on. I don't normally use a pedal, I normally have a rack compressor that I would do it with. And that's it. It would go straight to the cabinets, and the cabinets would come in then to the converters. At the moment, I have this Neve preamp right here that's on one of the microphones. I think that's on the 414 at the moment. This TLA valve preamp is really cool to add a little bit of kind of old analog groove to things. That's a stereo one, so I can have both microphones in that at the same time, which is really cool. This Focusrite is really good as well. I tend to favour the Neve though. The preamps in the Prism stuff are also just incredibly good. So that's what I tend to go through. I'm actually just trying out this kind of cool thing from Lindell, I think it is audio, little 500 rack preamp at the moment. That's working out really well. In fact, I used that on some acoustic stuff the other day. That's really cool. Other rack gear here that you can see, you've got an aural exciter, really cool kind of thing that restores some of the upper harmonics and things. It makes it a little kind of more present and brighter. I will sometimes switch that on, but very rarely. It's normally a mix tool really. And then the other thing that I have a lot here, ignore the EQ because that's not on, is this summing unit. So this is a valve summing unit from TLA, and what this does is it takes 16 channels in, and then I can print out 2 stereo, and I can put in some tube warmth to it. It's something I do for people when I'm mixing a lot, but it can actually be really cool to do it on guitar parts just as they're going, and they kind of have this old analog desk feel to them. So that's a pretty cool kind of thing. So we go out of guitar into tuner, out of the tuner into the pedal board, really mainly for the volume pedal or any distortions I want, into amplifiers, through the cables into the live room, back into the preamps, converters, and then into the DAW, the DAW. That's it. It's that simple. It sounds kind of complex, but it's not. The mixing desk here, as you can see, this is really just a monitor mixing thing. There's at the moment just these Genelec monitors that I use, really great monitors. They're actually powered by another Prism interface. It's probably the purest sounding monitoring system I've ever heard, really. It's really wonderful, great for mixing, and it means I can get exactly the sound I'm hearing rather than having other things in the sound that aren't being shown in the monitoring. But this mixing desk just receives the signals back out, so I get no latency, get really pure monitoring. These headphones here that I use, these are AKG Q701s, and I use these when I'm recording some acoustic, so I have to have cans on rather than the monitors on. And that's the signal. Really, really simple. Okay, so I'm going to talk you through some of the guitars. So this is a Yamaha nylon electro acoustic. It actually works amazingly as a plugged-in guitar. It's got a really beautiful kind of mellow kind of sound thing. So that's a great guitar. I've used this a lot over the years. It's getting a bit beaten up now, but it's a great guitar. Then we have my old Strat, old faithful kind of Strat. This is, again, it's getting a bit beaten up, a bit worse to wear, but this is a wonderful... It's got just a great sound to it. This is the only guitar I use that's actually got 10 gauge strings in it. Everything else has 11s, but this seems to work really well with 10s, so I use 10s on this. This has been used on tons and tons of records that I've done with people. It's got a classic Strat sound, a little bit kind of more growly than most Strats actually. So it's really good just for cutting through the mix. Used this a lot on a lot of the Grey Sarah songs that I was helping her develop recently. And a lot of the Revelator, the stuff that I was doing, the soul band that I put together, this is all over that. A lot of solos on it. And I also used it very recently on a Miles Sanko's, a great soul singer, a friend of mine. He just did a new album, and this was very used on that. So that's that. Then I have the hollow body PRS that I was playing at the very beginning. This thing really is the quintessential kind of hollow body. It's just beautiful, incredible guitar. Craftsmanship is just second to none, and yeah, I'm very lucky to have this and use it an awful lot. Next up we've got this PRS Myra. So again, this is a kind of an SG type of deal. It's got a really kind of mahogany sound to it, and very nasally. I used this on a track called Blinded by Science, which was a Thomas Dolby remake track recently I did for an artist. And a lot of people actually, it's getting quite a lot of views on YouTube. A lot of people are emailing me asking how did I get the sound for the solo. And that was this very guitar that I got from Paulie Smith, and it was just this guitar plugged in. I I think it was plugged into my Hampstead amp actually, and through a tube screamer, and it just came out incredible. It's one of those solos which was like a one take thing, really didn't take very long and just sounded great, and that was this guitar. Very good kind of classic rock thing. Then I've got this one which is kind of cool. This is an old Fender, it's a JV Squire, it's a Japanese vintage. You can look up the history of these things, very rare now. This is absolutely immaculate, which I got recently. It's got bare knuckle pickups in, it's a really big sound. Really wonderful sounding thing. So this is another great guitar I'm very pleased to have. And then my great friend Charlie had this guitar for me. This is a Telecaster, obviously. It's had some of Charlie's magic done to it, and it's really one of my out of tune but most used guitars. It's all over lots of records that I've done. I've just been doing a lot for a great kind of singer-songwriter called Simon Kent, and this is all over that, both lead lines and rhythm lines. I'm starting to do a few more solos these days for people, which is kind of nice to do. And this is really great, all over the Simon Kent stuff. So yeah, really good guitar. So over here I've got some acoustics that I use. The mainstay of my acoustic collection is this Lakewood. It's an M18 custom. It's a really cool guitar. And then here we've got the Taylor. It's a GS Mini. This is a great sounding guitar, this one. Yeah, just focus out. Then we've got a couple of resonators, or Dobro and a resonator. Surprisingly useful things actually, that I use quite a lot. I do quite a lot of slide playing for people under tracks just to fill them out. So there are the acoustics.